So if you could take a seat, please. Just a reminder that this is an open workshop, so it is being recorded and will be made publicly available. And I would like to welcome Kate, who is the chair of our local advisory committee, and welcome her and her team to introduce themselves and open us up, and we'll get underway with the workshop. So welcome to you all.
Thank you for having us. We approached all the councils. We like to go around the north and have these chats in an informal way, because anything that we talk about may end up going to the FENZ board as an issue for this community. So I have my fire and emergency hat on today. So I am a Central Hawke District Councillor, so I have met a lot of you with that hat on as well. I'd also like to introduce Hamish Smith. I'll get him to tell you a bit more about himself later, and Liz Lambert, who's on our committee as well. So Noa tākau aho, ki takapaua aho in Ahuana. I'm from the deep south originally. I moved to Hawke's Bay just over 30 years ago, and I lived in Takapau for almost 20 years. 2 more farms and I'm out of Hawke's Bay, so I'm not going any further south for a while. I came here originally to work for Radio New Zealand for a couple of years here in Napier when I was 21. Met a young farmer and never went away again. We farmed on Glengarry Road up off the Napier Taupo Highway before we moved home. Freelance journalist, editor, event manager by trade, as a volunteer firefighter as well as spending copious amounts of time, as you were all aware, with the councillor hats on. So I'll now hand over to Hamish just to introduce himself and his position.
Yeah, so Paul Hamish Smith, Tupungoa. I've been with Fire and Emergency and obviously the New Zealand Fire Service prior since I left school, so as you can see that's a few sunrises and sunsets ago. So it's about 38 years. Starting off, born in the Horowhenua, but had to get out of there by the time I was standard 4 in those days, instead of year 8. And had all my schooling in Taradale, Taradale High School. Left school, worked in a bank for a year and 1 day, and then worked in the Wise Bakery at Flaxmere with Gary and Paul, and then did a career around Napier. While all that time I was doing that, I was volunteering at Taradale Fire Brigade, and then went into the career service early 91. So I've had to move around a couple of times in and out of Hawke's Bay to get to where I am today. So basically anywhere across the lower North Island and south. So I did do 4 years in Hamilton, and just come back from 12 years as a manager in the centre of the island, based out of Rotorua. So I've got around the North Island a little bit, and here I'm a group manager, and my area of responsibility is Napier Artereri, and includes the rural gates up to Petrie Road and the Napier Taihape Road, like Whare and Meadowpera, obviously Napier Material Station. Any questions later on when it gets to that? There's no stupid questions, that's my rule. No stupid questions, and in between us, if we can't answer them, we will find an answer for you.
I do have an introduction of you in here if you don't want to.
Hello, ko Liz Takuingoa. So I'm Liz. I'm on the LAC, so this is my 2nd term, and I actually started on the pilot when we were piloting the LACs here. So that was back in the day when I worked for Safer Napier. So I've seen a couple of you around. I'm now working at the Hastings District Council in our Welcoming Communities coordinator role. So I've got a bit of a Safe Communities background, and now moving more into multicultural newcomers.
Excuse me, is this being recorded?
Yeah.
And you need a mic.
Do you want us sitting down rather than standing up there?
Or even if you just pull the mic over closer to you, I think you, Kate, you were probably speaking loud enough for it to get picked up by the mic, but and probably Hamish was as well.
Over there.
No, that's all right. Okay, so I'll introduce the other LAC members via the PowerPoint. Slightly different to the pre-reading that I sent, just in order to, for me to tell you some things rather than having to read all the words on the screen. So for more than 150 years, fire service organisations have been at the heart of New Zealand communities, protecting and preserving life and property. The changing challenges, the type of emergencies that we respond to has changed. Climate change, new technology, growing, ageing and diversifying population means our community is always facing new challenges. Unplanned emergency events are also increasing in frequency, which is no surprise to any of us after February 14. So increasing in frequency and severity. And in 2017, the government unified New Zealand's urban and rural career and volunteer fire stations into one integrated Crown entity governed by a board. We live and breathe by some of the values, the vision, the purpose, the priorities, but essentially our principal objective is to reduce the incidence of unwanted fires and the associated risks to life and property. So we want to protect and preserve life. Our main functions are that firefighting option, fire safety, hazardous substances, rescuing trapped people as a result of transport accidents or other incidents, and urban search and rescue. Our added functions now include responding to medical emergencies and responding to maritime incidents. And we also, again, as we discovered in February 14, we respond to severe weather-related events, natural hazard events and disasters. So while firefighting remains at the core of our organisation, fire and emergency is increasing its focus on building resilient communities and reducing the consequences of those emergencies. So our brigades and our brigade members are the backbone of the organisation. They're those first responders that when the siren goes up or their pages go, that they're there safeguarding lives and property. But ensuring the well-being of our neighbourhoods creates a foundation for resilient and thriving societies. So we've got to go one step further. It goes beyond the immediate response and encompasses being more proactive, community engagement and fostering that culture of preparedness, which we've seen across the East Coast since February 14 in particular. The recent impact of the cyclone underscored the unpredictable nature of those natural hazards and their ability to disrupt our communities. Again, I'm not preaching to the unconverted here. Learning from these experiences, we want to refine what FENZ does to enhance those response efforts going forward and to enhance the community resilience. Moving forward together involves understanding the unique characteristics and identities of Napier's communities and its geography, and it goes beyond demographics. It goes into those communities, and no two communities are alike. And so it's understanding actually what are the risks in one in particular compared to another. And what we're trying to do, and our purpose is coming up in the next one, is that there may be reoccurring themes from St Napier South or making it up, Hastings West, Gisborne, a suburb of Tairāwhiti, somewhere in Dunedin, somewhere in Canterbury. If all of the LACs are coming up with the same kind of themes, then it pushes that strategic push to the board. So what are the LACs, as we call them, the local advisory committees? So the board appointed the first 7 almost straight away. We provide strategic advice about what our communities need, what they value and the risks they face. We're trying to make sure that a community voice is captured at this level, and this is for FENZ, so that the FENZ board all the way up are recognising the risks at this level. And it's a different but the same, different avenues as what they would do to a council or to FENZ or to any other organisation that has a national office. So what we're doing is strategic, and there's quite often it can be operational, in which case there's also a two-way street between us. There's no us and them. I can I can phone the likes of Hamish and Glenn Barker or whoever anytime I wish to pass on anything that the LAC has found. So as Liz has already introduced herself today, so I won't read the nice little CV I have in front of me. The other two that are on the committee is at the moment is Brian Saunders. He has a background in rural firefighting and forestry. He currently works with Pampac Forest Products to deliver training in rural fire planning services to business across Hawke's Bay. And he previously held roles within rural fire pre-FENZ. Hane Flood is a Health Hawke's Bay director, has been a community educator for the Tairāwhiti REAP program, which is rural education activities, for more than 30 years. And some of you may know her from 3 terms as a Wairoa District Councillor and 1 term as Deputy Mayor. And she also had a Ministry of Health appointment to the Hawke's Bay District Health Board. And we've been appointed for our, not our standing in the communities, but our network and knowledge of different communities within our region, ranging across the main districts. And there's 4 more being set up at the moment, and as part of that process, we're also getting some new members in.
Sorry, Kate, I'm going to interrupt you. Have you got control of the waiting room, do you know?
Is it on this one?
Potentially.
Oh, yeah. So that might be Nigel Wall. Who
That's
is
Nigel Simpson.
Is it one of your Nigels or our Nigel? Cool.
Can you
Okay,
tell
if it's
that?
Nigel Hall, he'll pop up there. He's our
Can you tell me?
community risk manager who also had an invite. No, he won't
That's what
be.
makes
He's probably, yeah. So we've got, so we report to the national board, but we work closely with Glenn Barker, who's the acting district manager here in Napier, and his team to understand and engage with communities by gathering feedback from a wide range of networks within our communities and use that feedback to provide that strategic advice to the board. Our aim is to inform the board's planning and help it better support communities to reduce that risk that we mentioned earlier, to help them prepare for and respond to emergencies, to be part of everything that's been going on the East Coast and wider since February 14. So around the country, there's various the LACs that have already been in. I found it quite, when I first joined, I found it quite helpful to find out what the wins that some of the other LACs have had. And so in Northland, in particular, they identified at-risk communities in the Hokianga, and so they worked specifically with the local iwi there, Te Roro. And in Hawke's Bay, the LAC also connected with Ngāti Kahungunu. And apologies for a typo from head office there for 2 NGUs in Ngāti Kahungunu and the pre-reading you had. I've since educated.
Sure.
The Chatham Islands LAC identified a lack of smoke alarms across the board on many of the islands. Resulting in a week-long home fire safety visit campaign, and they now boast every single home has at least 3 smoke alarms. So obviously they're a long way from outside help should they need it. In Otago, they had a specific community consultation in an area that was prone to wildfire in the hinterland of Cromwell, Wanaka, into the Taurus, up into the Mackenzie Basin. And they worked specifically with wildfire, and it also, if you may remember some news stories a couple of New Year's Eves ago, Queenstown had a huge fires sparked by fireworks on one New Year's Eve. So almost every volunteer firefighter within a certain radius of Queenstown spent their New Year's putting out these fires caused by fireworks. And so that LAC was able to push the importance to the FENZ board, and now the FENZ board is calling for, hasn't come in yet, is it? The public ban on the public sale of fireworks. And so that is now becoming a thing that is rolling through the various forms of bureaucracy. But it's something that animal lovers, as well, and firefighters, because every single Guy Fawkes or New Year's, there are spot fires caused by fireworks. So that's one thing that LAC has done. In Marlborough, they connected specifically with the wine industry and viticulture industry, because here's a workforce that is dotted around their rural areas that could be an integral part of their volunteer base. Tairāwhiti, they particularly were interested in volunteering in the rural and isolated, the more remote communities of Tairāwhiti, so they've been working quite hard with that. We have fed an insight currently that we want the ability, it currently can be done, but it's not as easy, depending on which brigade and which level of district, what district you're in. And Hawke's Bay is very well known for being open to things that are a little bit not the norm. And this is firefighters living in one area and working in another and being able to turn out for both brigades. So it can be done at the moment, but training-wise, honours-wise, there's just a few hurdles. So one of our insights was to help that volunteer base, was that one example in my area is the chief of Waipokoro Brigade works in Waipawa. So he turns out for both brigades, and that's something that we're pushing from our LAC to FENZ to investigate making that an easier pathway. We were also instrumental in getting the service of operational support people, so that's not active firefighters, but they're still part of the brigade. They might be an admin or turning out as a helper on the fire ground, but not actually lugging the hose around. And we got them recognised in the FENZ honours, the United Fire Brigade Association honours system. So they could, some of those have been helping for 20 years and more, but they didn't get the honours that a firefighter would get. So a basic list of how we engage with communities, we identify some risks and needs. I think what's possibly missing there is we can engage with more communities. So if you come up with things today that might be risks for your community, we can then head that way, and we can head that way again and do some more specific engagement as a result of what we learn at one engagement. And then we have these quarterly meetings and we send the advice back to the board, and we do get advice back from the board about what it is we've sent them. The chairs of all the LACs get together a couple of times a year and we nut out what the trends are, what we're all seeing, or whether it's isolated to Napier, for example, or whether, as I said before, it's happening in many places around the country. Our advice to them is local, independent and community focused. We can also use our knowledge and our networks to feed back into district and regional planning. So that's FENZ, district and regional planning, or the fire insurance levies. I don't know if you've seen the social media tiles that are out at the moment with the changes to insurance, where we're consulting on that. FENZ is consulting on that at the moment. They're doing just a rejig of some of the rates for various different sides of the insurance, and they're also, believe it or not, most people call third-party fire and theft. I know I have for many years called it fire and theft. Currently, none of that insurance levy that comes out of that third party pays for fire, which surprised me because it's colloquially known as fire and theft. And so that's one consultation that we as LAC members are able to. We don't put in a submission as an LAC, but I certainly put in a submission, and I think that should be part of that, because FENZ is 70% paid for. I think I've got that right from Dan last week, out of the insurance levies. And so and I know insurance is already going up, but when you've got the likes of FENZ, we never, ever want to get to the situation where, like you see in America, I know it's the movies, but where you're not insured, you can't help. So we never ever want to get to that in New Zealand. We're not here to replace the working relationships that you may already have with the likes of Hamish, your group manager, or Nigel Hall or his team from the community risk. We're not here to replace that. If anything, we're just another avenue. we're another conduit to make sure the right information is getting to the right people. And so quite often might be a conversation with Hamish or Glenn or others in the district team, and that can go through LAC channels as well. They may have something that they're seeing that they're not having any joy with the FENZ board that we can talk about, and if we see it as an issue, because the firefighters are our stakeholders too, that we can push that to the board. It might spark operational issues to become strategic issues at a higher level. And that is the gist of the presentation, but just open the floor if there's any questions to anything I've said, bearing in mind that my insurance comments are mine, not the LAC. So what are the risks facing Napier? Who could we be engaging with? It could be a feedback sparking from the cyclone. The floor is yours to ask as you wish, unless, sorry, I should just throw to you just in case you had anything else to add.
I'll just go through their questions and we'll summarise at the end.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks for that, Kate. So just to sort of get some clarification around the role of FENZ now, because I'm aware from I've gone out for a couple of ride-arounds, and you now attend all medical call-out events and things like that as well, don't you? It's quite a wide...
Co-response. So
yeah.
in the Foreign Emergency Act 2017, Section 11 is the must do that we were talking about. That's what we must do. Then Section 12 is the nice to do. So the things covered in Section 11 that we must do is obviously we must maintain a response for firefighting. We must respond to motor vehicle accidents. We must respond to hazardous substance spills. We must have a user capability as an organisation for the country. And the other one is we must render and make these subs respond and actually deal with it, respond and look at the way. So they are the must-dos. So in the nice-to-dos is where the medical response that you're asking about sits to. The medical response now outweighs the response to fire, not just in Hawke's Bay, but across the whole country. So we go into medicals 2 or 3 a day. Now, we co-respond to medicals where effectively the person is dead. So that's a code red or code purple call, commonly known as a heart attack. Someone stopped breathing. If there's no ambulances available, we could be sent to any other type of medical event, bearing in mind we have no way of transporting a patient. But if St John's think that our staff have the skills from the training that they undertake, they would send us to let's try and do something. So if we go back to responding to the most serious medical events where life is potentially lost or could be lost, we've now been doing it for a number of years, officially under the Act since 2017, but we were doing parts of it before. Since 2017, we've increased the life expectancy of Kiwis from 7% to 17 was the last thing, and it's now expected to be more than 20%. That's just getting somebody on the ground quickly, with AEDs and with defibs. You probably know ambulance officers out there, they'll tell you they like it when the fire service come along because it's good CPR. They refer to us as birdie blokes. I have some very good females down there, right here, that's done exactly the same training and can participate and do CPR just as good as anyone else. So if we look at them all as firefighters, the ability for firefighters to do good, productive CPR is what it's doing. The other things that come under Section 12 is obviously the likes of the cyclone response, earthquake response, any of those natural disasters. So that's nice to do as well. Same with ship firefighting offshore that was mentioned before, that's in the nice to do list. And where we're at now, we've got consultation around levy funding is, our funding that we have now cannot allow us to provide you in the community of Napier the Rolls Royce service that we've delivered for years across all of that. So we are now at the stage where we have to do Section 11, but what we're going to have to do is make some changes. If we don't get a levy increase, we're going to have to make some changes on those Section 12 nice to do activities to bring it back within budget. Because the expectations of the community, you know, we all saw it post the cyclone, the medical expectations and the wins we have there, and the supporting St John's, you know, it's all good stuff, but at the end of the day, it's got to be funded, and the change in funding never happened, or has never happened all the way along. So that summarises those questions. Yeah.
Thank you. That's useful.
Yeah, it's probably directed at yourself. One of those 4 phases is response.
Yep.
What interaction do you have with Napier City Council in relation to roads and the introduction of speed bumps, roundabouts that are delaying your response to emergencies?
So I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I rang and asked for someone in the roading division to ring me back 8 months ago, and I'm still waiting. So that's the first part of the question. So it would be good out of today to get someone to go and talk to, because you're talking about traffic calming devices that are put in, not just in Napier, but all over the country.
Yeah.
And regardless of what the PC answer is or not, to be quite bluntly, they do inhibit emergency services. And we are the most effective emergency service, because the fire appliance starts at about 12 and 14 tonne, goes up to 20 tonne, depending on what you're trying to drive around.
Police car and an ambulance don't have the same difficulty as a fire truck.
Well, the police cars don't. I don't know whether that's because that's sort of people, but anyway, I shouldn't say that yet. But an ambulance is just as tricky, because if you could imagine that you're very sick and say after CPR and you're relying on the stretcher of the ambulance, but first you've got to come to a standstill at every speed hump. Because if they're working with fine tolerances, whether it's needles, whether it's tubes, and normally whoever's driving will say, speed hump, whatever, they'll slow right down and they'll stop doing what they're doing to the patient until they've gone over it, and then they'll carry on. So they do inhibit our response. We had trial trucks for the last 6 months, so they're brand new fire engines built in the UK. They're on trial for an emergency. We lost a ladder off the second trial truck, and a contributing factor in the investigation was traffic calming device down Te Awa Ave. So we decided to go that way because the work on the foreshore, Marine Parade, and there's 3 or 4 speed humps, and it looks like the ladder has bounced in the gantry, and then it's fallen off, thankfully, on the Yarndi Toto Road in a rural area, and not in the middle of town, because they come racing out of people, those trucks and drove them. So they are having an impact. To answer your question, how we work together on getting around that is the conversation that I would dearly love to have, because we've got intersections that we have to avoid in our city because we cannot get fire appliances around.
Thank you.
Juliet.
Yeah, just in defence of speed bumps, they do actually save lives. So all the kids they're saving from being squashed by other cars, I think we can sort of say that they're worth it as
We're
well.
not debating it.
No,
Well, I know, but still, it's the reason for having
Response
them.
is response.
Right.
And if it's a minute, 10 minutes and a person dies as a result, then I'm imagining that the fire service is having to change its designated or the best available route to get to places.
Well, what I have available to me when I can show it to someone is 5 years of data in a GIS map. So it shows where all of our frontline fire appliances in Napier have gone for the last 5 years around Napier. if someone in council must have the same information, because everywhere we go, everywhere we've gone, is exactly where all the speed bumps are. Because they've been the roads that we've taken. Now, there's all sorts of traffic calming devices, and as I said at the start, we've worked all over New Zealand, so 100% acknowledge that everything serves a purpose, and there's more than one way to do a thing. So it's how you work with all the calming initiatives and put them in the right place. And yeah, it's probably good information for council to know, well, this is where FENZ are going. Now, there's a really good chance that FENZ are going that way. St John's will definitely be using the same roads, and probably a good chance that police as well. So it's how we sit around the table together and work out a way forward.
Yeah, and I've made a note to ensure we connect you with someone in our roading team to actually have that conversation and ensure that there's a process in place going forward as well.
And
Open lines of communication.
for the LACs to be part of that as well, because if we go back, it's not just Napier having the calming issues. So that's something that we can take as an insight and feed to FENZ and say, you need to look at this on a national level. Is it just certain places that are having the issues, or is it wider than
Well,
that?
we've got 17 districts across, so New Zealand, divided up to 17 districts across 5 minutes in New Zealand. And I can tell you, I know of 8 other districts where my colleagues are already trying to work. They're engaging at different levels with local council for exactly the same issues that we're talking about here today. No one's saying take them out, we don't need to dig them out. You don't want to put them in, you put them in for a reason. But let's have a discussion about what type you use going forward and how we, work together to get the outcome we want. But we can still all deliver our service and safety.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got a couple of questions.
Yep.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you with those speed humps. We could probably work better and match things up when we look at where the station is to where you head, likes of Douglas McLean, Alpers and Riverbend Road. I can see you shaking your head. We won't go there. Yeah, I know. In the past, your team have come and presented, going back a while now, to council to discuss with us about types of buildings and where and when and widths of driveways and what we should and shouldn't do. And that sort of stopped over the last few years. Whether it's because you were getting nowhere, I don't know. But our city landscape in the near future is likely to change with more multi-storey buildings filling up whole sections. It's happening all around the countryside. Do you guys work with our team looking at that side of things, our building team, or get involved with our district plan and have input to those sort of things?
So again, sometimes I run about roading improvements. I ask to speak to the planning team around the very things you've said today. So, I was looking at the district plan. We're talking about, infill housing and potentially buildings to 6 levels.
Yep.
I think was what was originally proposed in the early discussions. I don't know how that's changed throughout your planning process, but we really can only reach 2 levels. And that's the biggest message that I want to get across the council plan. Is that we can only reach 2 levels without ladders that come off the top of the appliances. And for those of you that have seen the big aerial appliance with the big white boom on the top, it'll reach 17 metres. So it's got a big 17 on the white boom. So it'll reach 17 metres. But I have to be able to park it within 1.5 metres of the building. So the chances are, if you've got even a building in Emerson Street, I won't get it within 1.5 metres of the building. So it's never going to reach its maximum. The other problem we have is the organisation after 20 years have just ordered the next level aerial appliances that you see in Auckland Road and Christchurch. They're worth millions and millions of dollars. And that's what we would need to form to a 6-level building. So they don't just come off the shelf overnight. We go back to budget again and we go back to build times. So I'd dearly love to be having that conversation, with your planning team. As far as like building inspectors, my new neighbour and apartments is the lead of the building inspector team. So he's got my email and I've got his, and we can trade emails and help each other out, because that's what it's about. We're all doing this for our community. He's got a question, I'm more than happy to answer it, and vice versa. So it's all about relationships and partnerships, and really, really keen to get back to that kind of relationship and partnership, because I hate us to find ourselves in a position where council have gone through your due process and got to a point, but we haven't kept up with that. We don't know where you're going, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves behind that, because that is embarrassing for everyone.
So technically, we're not saying you can't go to 6 levels, but we'll need plenty of, FENZ will need plenty of warning in order to be able to fight.
I mean, if you're going to go to 6 levels, obviously your buildings have to comply with the Building Act, so they'll have a great deal of extra cost, because they'll have to have in-building hydrant systems at each level, sprinkler systems, display accommodation, and all of those more expensive fire protection devices, as opposed to what you would have in a domestic dwelling now with a 10-year smoke alarm.
Just before we move on to another question, and recognising that there clearly is the need to strengthen some relationships here, but with the reference to due process, do you know if FENZ made a submission to our proposed district plan? Because there would have been a formal process that could have been engaged with to provide feedback about.
So I don't know at a local level. We certainly don't do those
At a local level.
Having the relationship. I know that Becca are contracted to do those types of submissions by Foreign Emergency New Zealand across the country.
Okay.
So
they'd keep an eye on which councils were doing their district plans, and they would.
yeah. So like, even if you're looking at a new subdivision somewhere, then Becca on our behalf should be getting your thoughts at a planning stage, and they should be feeding back on all those things that relate to like natural hazards and fire and all the stuff that we do. And primarily it's around water supplies.
Yeah.
So they'd be having a conversation, what should water supply look like? This is what it needs to be if it's an industrial subdivision or a residential subdivision. And that's done at that level.
Yeah.
But certainly at a more local level, boots on the ground, getting in nice and early, that's where I think the relationships that we're talking about now, that's probably where they need to start.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because FENZ is dealing with 70 councils.
Yeah.
So, so the better the relationships at this level, where Hamish might be able to tell head office, whoa, this is what Napier is doing, can you look at that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Equally, if you can see things popping up, you can either come to us or you can come through us.
Yeah. Sorry, Richard, I interrupted you. Did you have another?
No, I just had a second question, which was up until a few years ago, you guys used to drive around the neighbourhoods and pop the fire hydrants and run some water out, guaranteeing that, I guess when you do that, they're accessible and actually have water in them. That stopped over the years.
So you're right. So what you used to see us doing was going around and spot checking the hydrant system for its flow. So, and to make sure they're marked correctly and can be seen. Now that requirement to upkeep all of those hydrants sits with your council maintenance and water team. So they go around and it's every 5 years they normally go around, do some painting, do the whatever they do under the ground. So they were weeding around and all spraying around and all trying to uncover. They do all that, and they theoretically need to make sure the pressure and everything meet the standards. What you saw us do, just go around and sample fire check it.
Yeah.
However, why it stopped is primarily around the need for a traffic management plan for us to be able to put our people in a lane of traffic on the road to be able
I would just put a speed bump next to all of them and you'll be all right. Yeah.
You've also got some rural brigades who, I mean, on Whakapā, we use it as when we've got new recruits and we send them out down the street because they've got to put a standpipe, lift the lid, put it on, flush it out, and we make them do that over and over and over down the street so that they can just do it without thinking, because it's not something that we deal with on a regular basis in rural township.
So if they are off the road, we can still go and do them, but primarily a lot of them are within a metre of the road or in a traffic lane or where you park. So obviously we would need to get a traffic management plan. We're not set up for traffic management plans, and there's a whole lot of other stuff that comes with that now. We have made a number of requests to try and get an exemption, like the rubbish trucks get, collecting the waste each week in the recycling trucks. And maybe that's something that Kate can make a note of and talk about as an LAC again, is to see if FENZ can get some kind of an exemption that, maybe we have our lights flashing. So that means, under the Transport Act, we're not allowed to have flashing unless we're going to an emergency. So, there's a bit of negotiation that needs to happen there. Might be some simple signage we can put on the back of the truck rather than putting out 20 road code. There's ways around it, but that's why you don't see it happening.
Fair enough.
Just checking that, it's because they belong to council, it's council's water supply, council's maintenance.
Yeah, council do the first bit, and what they used to see was us going around checking 5% of what council look after on a 5-year rotating basis over their water system. And what I can assure you happens is if it's a building of risk, or a building that we have a risk plan for, every 5 years we have to check that the water can do that. So we will go and do that, and like quite often, if it's Neighbour City, we'll do it at night while you're all sleeping because it's just easier. There's no cars on the way. We're not going to do it in the middle of summer when there's water restrictions. If there's a water restriction on anywhere, so we try and time it so that the best intrusive one can.
Rhonda, can you get the fire trucks into Cathedral Lane?
That was the one I said not too far from here. So we can get the small ones. The one that we can't get in is the big aerial truck. We can no longer turn off Tennyson Street.
Okay.
Because of where they put the big square boxes, garden boxes and bits and pieces.
Oh, they're not there anymore. The boxes have gone. But we got told that a fire truck was tested to go down that street, so I just wanted to know.
Oh, well, so the short answer is, because there's a number of them, the short answer is that's on my list of no, we can't. But I'm happy to send them back down and try again if there's been some changes made. Yeah. It's touch and go that if there's no cars parked on the right-hand side of the road and you've got 2 lanes in the car parking space, then we can swing around there. But that truck has tandem rear axles and it's 22 tonnes, so it's not like you can turn it on a 50% piece. And then the problem we get when we were talking about the larger aerial appliances, I need more turning space for those, so the problem just gets bigger. Because they're normally tandem front and tandem rear on cab chassis and more weight.
We're currently looking at the revitalisation of Emerson Street, so I don't know if... Do you know if you've been involved in that engagement?
I haven't had any engagement around that yet, but happy to.
Okay. I would think that's pretty important because if one of those buildings catches fire, it would take out the whole street.
Yeah, well,
if you guys can't get there.
To be honest, it's challenging enough now and was when it was set up for the here and now of what we've got. So if
they're looking at making it straighter.
Well, I like straight lines.
Yeah, it might improve it. Yeah, it might improve it. But just I guess the width. We need to. And the bollards too, like who would have, if we're going to cut the street off at some stages, how do you guys have access to?
Well, you can get all sorts of different kinds of bollards now, and there's lots of technology changing in there. So when I started working in Hamilton back in the 90s, 92, 96, garden place for the Hamilton Council buildings there, just off the main street. There were bollards all around that, but we had ways of removing the bollard or two reasonably quickly if we had to, and we had big tile areas and that. We don't do well with grass, heavy trucks like that.
You can also get the ones under lock that can go up and down.
Yeah.
You know, you see
think
sometimes
that's
car parks or car parking buildings or
Yeah,
saw a lot overseas that as long
It
as
would
fire service has a key.
definitely be something that.
Yeah.
Oh,
FENZ
they'll be
yeah.
doing up and down, but it's just that, if something happens, who pushes the button?
Yeah,
Who's
you
got the
have it
access to it?
specifically set
Yeah.
up to make
Yeah,
sure it
yeah.
worked
All
for.
sorts of flags.
Yeah.
Providing there's power.
Yeah,
It's
We're allowed to
recognising,
say
building
that.
those relationships again.
Yeah.
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 Harking back to Little Tupperware Brigade, we've got keys for, for any number of places in our township that we would need to get to them 3 o'clock in the morning. So
Yeah.
It's building those relationships again and getting that information.
And if we're getting it and we run into trouble together, we've got a partnership and we run into trouble together, but Kirsten can take it by her avenue of feeding it up. And I can go sideways here with my rugby pass, and the LAC can look at their avenues. Because it might be that, peers of mine all over the country have addressed this, like I said, it's Hamilton, for example, so we can go and find out what they're doing with their local councils and try and make stuff happen. It's not like we have to work in isolation.
In terms of who you could be engaging with, do you engage with residents associations? We have a couple of very, very active and high membership residents associations, which would be probably quite good to plug into.
Yeah, and if you look at our CRM team that Nigel Hawke heads, so the community engagement like that, that's exactly, where they would come in around advice.
Yeah.
Advice on fire or other emergencies per se. And then if Nigel wanted, or they had questions around response and things like that, myself or my senior officers that ride the trucks, want to better work down at the fire station, they can support Nigel and his with all those questions, resident associations. So, yeah, look, we want to do better. This is the whole reason for FENZ is to be able to get in before the emergency. We've had enough of being there last.
Yeah.
We want to be there right at the start and work together because it is our community just like it's your community. It's real easy, I can work under the FENZ Act that allows me to do anything. The police love it. Not, I have more powers than them most of the time if I want to enforce them. I can order a building to be knocked down if it's going to stop a fire on Emerson Street burning from one end of the street to the other. Policemen can't do that, but I have the power to do that without question. I don't want to ever use that power because that's someone's building. Could be someone's house, could be someone's business. I'd rather work now on providing the best advice possible to ensure we don't find ourselves.
So with the residents associations, it's the sort of thing where yes, the community risk management team may already have those relationships. So it's a bit of both. You said, Nigel coming to us and saying, hey, come to one of these meetings with us. It's about, or maybe we go to some of those and say, particularly like we are today, hey, we're here if you see issues. But it's the reason for us coming to this level is also to get that feedback because don't worry about Taradale, but or Green Meadows has this issue, and so then we can it feeds the issues to us, right? When you know that they're there. But absolutely, I hadn't actually thought of residents associations as being something just to touch base with Nigel's team and seeing, but it's not covering the whole bases.
Yeah.
Finding out where the issues are and actually focusing on them, and it may be that. Luther or Dunedin had one where they had a specific issue with the Samoan community, not understanding what the noise was when the siren went up, and not knowing what to do, and not with a lot of they were dairy. I think they were in a dairy just up the Dunedin, a big dairy area, and they were all sort of just living together, and they didn't understand what it all was, and so they specifically targeted that community. And had everything printed and so on, and did dancing and music and used their culture to teach them about FENZ. So it's finding out what the issues are and then finding out the best way for FENZ to get in there. It wouldn't be us going into the
No.
community necessarily, but it's feeding it back to FENZ.
And certainly like post the cyclone, you look at one of the other R's, resilience, we've certainly worked with both the regional council, senior people, but also the Naked City Council, and EMO, and like one of the ones that I personally been involved in was Marae posted around, them trying to get a resilience plan.
Yeah.
How their community would operate in the future if something like that happened. So, I've been doing some work with people on the hill. Is another one that I've been involved in. So we do that, if people come and ask, and we know, we'll work with all of our other partners and stakeholders in any community to plan for the future.
One of the sort of things that came out of the 2020 floods was the importance of actually educating our community on what they can do to assist with resilience. So ensuring that stormwater drains are kept blocked. Council can't be everywhere, and sometimes it's a case of actually the community taking some responsibility for some of these things that if you see it, fix it. Would you see that something as potentially a role FENZ could play to support how we educate the community in those sorts of scenarios and to better prepare the city for weather events and things like that?
Look, personally, I do. I think FENZ can play a part in any of the community education because this uniform gets us through a lot of doors that other uniforms can't get through. So we have the ability to go in. We educate kids in school about safety around fire from the day they start school in their first year to get a presentation around that. So we're not necessarily educators by qualification, but we've got skills, we've got a CRM team, and I think another important place, my view, and not FENZ's view, is every homeowner, whether you rent or own a home, if you look after it from the start, like the rain catching on your roof or the rain falling on your section, if you want to put concrete all over your section, then the water's going to run off somewhere. If you want some surfaces where the water will help everyone out, you clean your spouting out once a year, then you're probably not going to flood your house the first winter rain. So, you can start everywhere. It's not just FENZ, it's not just council.
Yeah.
You go right back to the start. There's probably a broad education.
And I think there is a strong willingness for FENZ to work in that education space with things like council, and that comes through your safe community.
And all the volunteer brigades, it's their community. So
Yeah, exactly.
Paint stuff as well, probably, but the volunteers live and breathe that particular community.
Right. Any further questions from anyone? No? Okay. Well, I think that's been, certainly I've made a few notes to make sure we can connect you up with various people in our team. And I think there's some opportunities definitely for us to actually support each other in the roles that we have within our communities. So appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us today. Awesome.
Thank you.